attention to what the teacher was saying, and the teacher just went on like nothing was going on. I saw, and I say this because I think maybe the teacher might have felt bad, and I don't want to belabor the point, but because I was in this classroom, and there was a Caucasian female young teacher who had what they call MIDs. And I didn't realize what it was till I went in there. It was called mildly intellectually disadvantaged or something like that, right? And I sat there and I observed, and she was supposed to have a paralegal, a paraprofessional come and help her, but she wasn't there, and it was just me sitting in there. So she asked me, would I help 2 of her worst students, 9 years old, and they were boys, right? So they sat down with me, and, you know, I got them relaxed. I gave them the pound sign. You know, we got, you know, we went through the regular jogging that we do as men with our little boys, you see. But my point was, after they had sat down with their math, and I got the attention of the one that was most restless to make him do the work, they both got 100. But the teachers thought they couldn't even do the work. You understand my point? So I'm saying that we got a real responsibility that we can't just isolate ourselves to our little cliques or our little clubs or our little fraternities and sororities. We got to get in here and deal with what's happening to our young children coming behind us, because they're going to be destroyed.
Thank you.
And
you know, this is just what I observed.
And being involved in our communities and being accountable for our communities, empowering ourselves to do that. So this is, because it's, you know, when people teach your children and they don't relate to your children, then your children are not going to learn from those people.
She couldn't do nothing with them 2 little boys. We got a caller. I'm sorry.
Okay.
All right.
Make a statement.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You can come in after this. All right, but I like to not hold our callers too long. All right.
Certainly.
Go ahead, caller. You're on the air. Hello, are you there? Okay. Do we have a caller or don't we? Okay. Well, go ahead and make your comment. We'll get to the caller. If you're there, please hold on.
I was about to say I'm very happy that you had the opportunity to go and observe in a classroom. When I was PTA president of a high school where my son, one of my sons was attending at the time, I kept hearing complaints from parents about the same thing. They said they would, their child was not learning. The teacher, and at that school, they had been a white school at one time, and the teachers were still there who had taught those children. And now, then it had changed to a predominantly black school with mostly the same staff and the same teachers teaching our children. And a lot of times, the perceptions that we were talking about earlier, the racism, or just not understanding our children or not wanting to teach them in the first place, kept them from doing the job. So I suggested that we all take one day off. And everybody just tell the principal what day you're coming and go and visit all day long in a classroom. It made an incredible difference, because the young people saw that they could not do that, because if it wasn't their mother sitting in the classroom, it may have been one of her friends or one of their neighbors.
But I was shocked. I was shocked at what I observed. But because you have a concern, whether they realize it or not, there's certain things, you know, because sometimes discipline, you know, how I get attention of a child, I don't care how, maybe teenagers even, I stare them.
It's more than discipline, though.
But I do. This is my method.
That's good.
A lot of it, I could say, as an educator, is motivation.
How you motivate. You're right.
If you have motivation, if you motivate a child, they won't be a disciplined child, because they have something to do.
And also, you know, we don't have a lot of male role models.
That's exactly.
Because if you went to that school, you probably could have counted on less than one hand, half a hand, the male teachers in that whole school.
That's true. But you know, one of the complaints that we have, because I'm involved with the oral history archives at Clark Atlanta University, right? And one of the complaints that we always present, at least when I'm on these panels, is that how can you expect a male who has to take care of a family to go to a job that won't pay him enough to eat? How can you expect them to do that? So look at the strategy of the society, really, that will give such a dignified position as teaching such a low class.
That's true.
That's a shame. And we need to lobby with people like yourself who have, you know, to get to higher pays for people.
After being a teacher for 11 years and being the daughter of a mother who just retired after 30 years with Atlanta Public School, and a stepfather who had 38 years there, and he was my stepfather since I was 2 years old. I really knew what Atlanta Public Schools was all about. So I was truly, truly concerned with attracting and retaining quality teachers. So one of the first bills that I put in fact, I pre-filed it, was to raise the teacher salaries and to continue to raise it till it got to the national average. And the governor picked that up, and it passed as a result of him picking it up, thank
goodness. And it was a blessing for a lot of teachers, too.
Yes, so it's better.
We go right back to the media with that. And the media, and though it is a fact in some schools, have scared parents to going to visit their schools. Some parents think that every school, every child is carrying a gun and beating up the teachers, and they are scared to death. I am dead serious. They are scared to death.
Can I make a comment on that, please? You know, I just enrolled in the DeKalb system and to substitute whenever I felt like it, you know, put my name in their listing. And then I seen on the advertisement on television this movie called Substitute. You know? Did you see the coming attraction? I said, why would they do that when I'm ready to try it? But we got a caller, okay? And I just want to go to him if you don't mind. You had a comment, you can bring it back. Okay, thank you for calling. You on the air, caller. Go right ahead. Do we have a caller? I'm sorry, could you speak up a little bit? I think we lost him. It probably might be somebody playing, but go ahead.
What I was getting to is I think my generation, I'm 32 years old, I think I came up in a very fortunate time in that when I started school in the kindergarten, it was 1968, that was just when a lot of schools in the South were becoming integrated. So we were like the first set of kids to start off as kindergartens with white kids. At the same time, we were the last set of kids to get whippings in school by our teachers, to stand up and sing and My Country 'Tis of Thee and America the Beautiful and the national anthem and say some kind of a prayer. We were the very last students to do that.
Okay.
The kids that came right behind me, if a teacher hit him, they hit him back. And I don't know what happened in there, but part of that was what they saw on television, part of that was what they saw in the movies, part of it was maybe that Vietnam adult crowd that was having kids of our age, and I don't know what it is.
What happened then? What happened? No, here's my point. What happened to the outspoken young people your age? What happened to them? Did they lose something because of these transitions that you were just mentioning? Did they lose something?
They didn't lose anything, but when I was growing up, we were fed down our throat with Martin and Malcolm. Martin Luther King died when I was in the kindergarten. Malcolm X died, I think I was 2 or 3 years old. But it was so fresh when I was in the 1st and 2nd grade. They had just died a few years ago. So when I grew up, people were looking for the next Martin Luther King. People thought it would be Jesse Jackson. They thought it would be Andy Young. And we never got another 26-year-old like we got Martin Luther King at 26 years old in 1955, started that movement. There's never been another person under 30 years old could get that respect to even lead a movement like that. So I think my generation just got lost in that. My generation, I wouldn't say I was in the computer age. In a way I am, but we didn't know about computers really until I got into college. So I'm a little bit ahead of them. But the 70s television shows, the police shows, the violence became prevalent in the 70s, and that's what changed a lot of things. We could go and see a rated R movie at 8 and 9 years old. I saw Rudy Ray Moore. I saw Dolomite, all those movies that kids my parents' age couldn't go see until they were 17 or 18. Right. That's where things start to change. Television stations started to go 24 hours during my child time. Okay. We went from black and white to color, and everything became television. The fast, instant news. Somebody gets shot, they show the blood on television. That didn't happen in my parents' time. Yeah, you just mention it, and sometimes you may not even say anything. Today, and when I was coming up in the 70s and 80s, you showed everything. You said everything. I can remember when watching Sanford and Son, if Red Fox said, damn, we thought that was like, oh, you don't say that. Yeah, taboo, now you can say anything on TV. Yeah, you can say anything on records. You can say anything on radio. And you can print it in the newspaper.
It's like the moral fiber of the whole country began to just kind of deteriorate and fall apart. And like you say, who can we point the blame? I don't know where, but it's like you said, a generation there, something went wrong.
Where are the vehicles, though, for moral consciousness that we have that should speak to
well,
these
the media
should be
part of that moral conscience, and I don't think the media has fallen very short of doing that.
One of your questions, though, what happened to those outspoken young people? And one of the things, you know, if you remember the 60s, there were several outspoken black organizations during that time. Stokely Carmichael and SNCC, H. Rap Brown, the Black Panthers. And I think a lot of young brothers we saw during that time are beginning to identify with those type of movements. You mentioned Malcolm and Martin, who both assassinated.